Seems more and more. I come up here, there seems to be more and more stuff every single time. I guess it's hid from y'all, so people lay stuff here, but I work around it. It's not a big deal. If you've got a Bible this morning, I want to invite you to open to the book of Mark, chapter 1, actually. Wednesday night, I let Tim lead the youth class, and he taught out of the book of Mark, the lady with the issue of blood, and we had a really good class. And I had been reading in the book of Matthew, going back through the Gospels. I like to refresh myself. All the miracles that Jesus done, they just amaze me all through the Gospels, and I like to go back and read because I always find something I missed, or find something I didn't catch the time before, or find something that's just a little nugget of truth that's hid in there. And one thing that I have gleaned from all of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is that when Jesus speaks, when he says something, it was so intentional, not just for that moment, but all the way through to today. And so every time you see a word in red there, or where Jesus spoke something, you need to really latch on to that, because he had something for you with that. It wasn't just for the people of that day, it was for us here too. So let me catch you up a little bit. We're going to be in verse 35 through 39, but right before this, it says, I'm just going to kind of sum it up. Jesus had left the synagogue with James and John, it says in verse 29, and they went to Simon and Andrew's home. Now Simon's mother-in-law was sick in the bed, and she had a really high fever. So they told Jesus about it right away, and he went to her bedside. He took her by the hand and helped her sit up. And the fever left her, and she got up and started cooking a meal for them. All right, so this is just one miracle that he had already done. He healed her. And that evening after sunset, many sick and demon-possessed people were brought to Jesus. The whole town gathered at the door to watch, okay? They were bringing people to him left and right, and everybody in town heard what was going on. They gathered up, and they wanted to go see Jesus heal these people. And so Jesus healed many of these people. They were sick with various diseases. He cast out many demons. But because the demons knew who he was, he did not allow them to speak. And I want you to latch on to that too, okay, because we're going to come back to that later. So in verse 35, it says, before daybreak the next morning, so, all right, he'd been healing people all night long, all right, because this was after dark. Now, before the sun comes up, it says, Jesus got up and he went out to an isolated place to pray, which we find Jesus does that from time to time. Later, Simon and the others went out to find him. They knew he had left. They went to seek him. And when they found him, they said, everyone is looking for you. All right, now I want you to keep this in mind. He'd been healing people all night long. They'd stood at the door the whole town. They had watched him heal person after person after person, cast out demon after person after person after person. He had to be tired. He went out to be by himself to pray. Listen to what he says. And this is what he replied to him. We must go on to other towns as well, and I will preach to them too. That is why I came. And now I thought about that long and hard, and seeing everything he'd been through here, everything that he had seen, all the people he had healed. He'd been up all night, just everything that was going on. And you would think he had said, look, y'all just give me a few minutes, let me sleep. I'm tired. I'm hungry. Let's give me a few. That's not what he said. The mission was, look, we must go on to other towns as well. Everybody needs this. There's people in every town who need to be healed. And he says, and I will preach to them too, that is why I came. So we travel throughout the region of Galilee, preaching in the synagogues and casting out demons. Now, we don't see a lot about casting out demons in our day and age, do we? Obviously, there was a demon problem, because there was a lot of people that were brought to him and they cast all those out. And there was a lot of sick people, and we see a lot of sick people in our day, so that's understandable. We don't see so much on the demon casting out thing. But he said, look, this is why I came. I came to heal that which was broken. I came to make this right. And he says this in his words. And when I read that last night, when I went back to this and I said, look, we got to go into other towns as well. We got to go into other places, because there's more people who need me, and I will preach to them too. That is why I came. And those last little words right there, that is why I came. Man, that ought to wake us up this morning. You think, well, I don't know, I don't understand. What do you mean? Look, they found him out by himself. He'd been praying, and he had realized, and he knew what his mission was. And he told them, look, this is what we have to do. This is why I'm here. So he came to preach. He says, I got to go to those towns and preach to them too. He came to heal, which means to me to make right. Because if your body's broken and it's healed, you're made right. If you're sick and you get well, your body is back in balance. It's back the way it's supposed to be. And to cast out. Now, these three things we see in this one little passage where he says this. I'm going to turn back just a couple of pages and read you a very familiar verse, because this is Matthew 28, at the end of Matthew 28. This is later than that, okay? But this is what he said. I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples to all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Listen to what he says. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. Then be sure of this, that I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Now, this was after that, after he said that, but this is the Great Commission. This is where they send people out. Go everywhere. Go to the next town. Go to the next town. Go to the next nation. Go to the next country. And go and tell. And basically, that's the commission he gave the disciples to go and do. That's the commission he gives the church today, is to go and do. And that's basically what he said early in the book of Mark, where we are now. Look, there's other towns that need me. There's other people who need me. I'll preach to them. And then he says, look, I'll preach, heal, and cast out wherever I go. Now, I thought about this a little bit too, because the whole healing part, and I remember a specific passage I want to read to you, because this is in the book of Mark 2. It's in Mark 10:52. And if you want to turn there with me, you can, because it's just one verse I'm going to read you. But it's, and Jesus said to him, look, it says, go, for your faith has what? Healed you. Go, because your faith has healed you. Instantly, the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road. Now, I could go in and read all the rest of that, but I think y'all know where I'm coming from with this, because he preached and he healed. He preached in their faith because they believed. He healed them. And then there was the casting out part. Now, I want to sit on this casting out part, because I think it's important for us today. Like I said, we don't see that. We don't see people going around casting out demons. It would probably scare us half to death if we did. And I know Halloween's coming up, and it has nothing to do with this, because this is not a scary thing. This is a reality thing. Because if you don't believe this still is not happening today, there's a problem in your brain. I mean, think about this. Think of the Jeffrey Dahmers, okay? The travesties that they did. Think of these things that people do to children. People that just do crazy stuff. Why in the world would a normal person do that? Because they're not normal. They have opened themselves up to allow something in other than God. And when you do that, that's just an open invitation for something evil to step inside you. And when something evil steps inside you, guess what? You do something evil. There's a great passage in the Bible that talks about a man that ran around naked in a cemetery. And people walk by and say, he's crazy. He tries to eat people. He tries to bite people. He tries to kill people. And he runs around with any clothes on up in the cemetery. And Jesus goes up in the cemetery. And when they come up to the cemetery, guess what? That man was kneeled at Jesus' feet. And there's a reason for that. Because he had the power to cast those things out. So he went and he preached. He went and he healed. And he went and he made things right. He cast out that which didn't need to be there. And that tells me that evil has no place in our body, has no place around us, because it can take control of you. Now, that casting out, that rebuking, not partaking of the evil that surrounds us, I guess it's demonic and the sin that comes through that. But I want you to grasp a couple of things. I'm going to turn over to the book of Luke too. And I don't mean to be jumping all around this morning, but there's a passage here where Jesus does that. And he says, in verse 31, this is Luke 4:31. It says, and Jesus went into Capernaum, which was a city, a town in Galilee, and he taught there in the synagogue every Sabbath day. There too the people were amazed at his teaching, and for he spoke with authority. And I could stop right there and preach all day long, because they were amazed, and he just spoke with one that knew it. Once he was in the synagogue, a man possessed by a demon, an evil spirit, began shouting. Listen to what he says. He was shouting at Jesus, go away. Why are you interfering with us? Huh? Go away. Why are you interfering? Why are you messing up what we're trying to do? Jesus of Nazareth, he knew who he was. Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. Listen to that now. Don't you listen to what he's saying. Jesus cut him short and said, be quiet and come out of the man. I like it when Jesus does that, don't y'all? Just shut up and get out of there. He ordered him out. He said, and at that the demon threw the man on the floor, and the crowd watched, and then it came out of him without hurting him any further. And amazed, the people exclaimed, what authority and power this man's word possesses. Even evil spirits obey him, and they flee at his command. The news about Jesus spread through every village in the entire region. I must go to town to town. This is why I came. I think, and this is my opinion on this, I think when Jesus came, the world was so bad and so eat up with possession and sin and evilness that he came and says, look, I've got to go to every town and make this right. Now, I want you to think about this. Now, we're in the United States, and pretty much there's a church in every town, okay? But are we doing what he wants us to do and the reason that he came? Now, does that mean we go start casting out demons? That's a whole different ballgame, a whole different realm I'm not going to get into this morning, because I believe when you cast it out, it's going somewhere. All right, it's going to look for a place to go. If you don't believe me, ask those 2,000 pigs that jumped off the bank, all right? So that's a whole different story, but what I am saying is there is evil around us. And even that evil recognizes who Jesus was. And Jesus says, I have came into this world as a man to turn so that you would have a glimpse of me and could relate to me. And I'm trying to make things right. I'm trying to heal these people who are sick. I'm trying to tell you who I am and preach to you. I'm trying to cast out this stuff that you don't need to be messing with. That's why I'm here, is what he said. So I want you to think about that and just soak that up for a minute, because I'm fixing to take you up a notch. So all of that happens. It's all right here in the Scriptures. We can watch it unfold. We can see what he did. We can see what happens. Jesus, I'm sure you, he knew what he was doing, and he gives us examples all through his word. And I don't find it extraordinary that these things happened. I find it extraordinary that Jesus loved us enough to come and do these things for us. All right? Because I can see the evil in this world. I can see the things that happen. I see goodness too, don't get me wrong. But I can see why Jesus would have to cast out demons out of people by the way they act. Because there's no good fruit in them at all. And when we mess with those things, I said this a minute ago, when we mess with those things that invite those things into our life, we're only opening a door for Satan to step into our life and do damage. And that's not why Jesus came. And he came to try to right those things that where they were happening at. Now, I'm going to read you another verse, because this is a really good one. It's in Mark chapter 2 right here. And I want to read it to you because I think it kind of jumps right in the middle of this. This is a little later after that, after he had healed the paralyzed man, and after he called Levi, or Matthew if you want to. And right at the end, he said this in verse 17. When Jesus heard this, he told him, listen, healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. I have come to call not those who think that they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. I want you, this is Jesus' words. These are in red. I want you to grant, healthy people don't need a doctor. If you're so self-righteous, you don't need Jesus, because you got all the righteousness you think you need. But sick people do. And if you're a sinner, you're like that sick person. He came to heal that which was broken. I have come to call not those who think that they are righteous, but those who know that they are not righteous, who are sinners, who need righteousness. And the only righteousness we're going to grasp is that of Jesus. Even Paul says, look, my righteousness is like filthy rags. So it's those that are broken that need him. Those who are hurting that need him. And that's why he came. He said, look, we got to go to other towns. We'll preach to them too. That's why I came. And boy, when I read that and I got to thinking about how this fits together, because it kind of jumped out at me, to go and tell. That's why he came. We're the church. We're the hands and feet of what Jesus left here on earth. We're the representatives of what he left. And he says, look, you got to go to the next town and tell. Does that mean we run to Smithville and tell? If we have to. Do we run to Woodbury and tell? If we have to. Maybe we tell right here in our own town. But that's why he came, is so that people would hear. And I'm going to tell you, when you're eat up on the inside of yourself or something evil, you're not going to listen to what Jesus had to say. But I'm going to guarantee you this, if you're sick and you go to the doctor, you're going to pay attention to him, aren't you? Because you want to know what he's got to say to make you well. And if you're a sinner this morning, you know you're sick. And you need to listen to the doctor. Because that's what's going to make you well. I said that was perfectly clear to me this week. Is that some people will not listen. Now, hey, look, I've known people who were really sick that would not go to the doctor because they were scared of what the doctor would tell them. You know, they were scared something was bad, wrong, it was going to be the end, and they didn't want to know. Well, listen, with this, in this case, the end's coming, and you want to know. It's not something to be so scared of that God is going to do something so detrimental to you, because what He really wants to do is to heal you spiritually. That's what He wants. That's why He came. He said, look, we've got to take this to other people, all these people, because He loved us. And you can see that love in what He was doing, can't you? Why would He even care about sick people if He didn't love them? Why would He heal them if He didn't love them? Think, well, I can, so, No. He said, look, I want to make this right. We made you, God made you to be in the image of Him, and what you're doing is not in the image of Him. It's in your righteousness and not His. And so what He wants from you is to be healed, to be made right, to be cleansed, if you will. He says that which was lost is now found. You know, people need to hear, they need to see, they need to be healed, they need to be made new. Oh, out with the old, in with the new. I mean, we see it all through the Gospels. Why do we have such a hard time grasping and explaining that to people? Look, if you're sick, get well. That's easy. That's easy to understand, isn't it? That's an easy way to put it, too. You know, when you're sick and you can't go on, you go to the doctor. When you're broken and you can't function, go to Jesus. It's not hard. So why do we have such a hard time doing what He asked us and commanded us to do? Go to all the nations in the world, telling them and preaching and baptizing them. Why do we have such a hard time as Christians being so outgoing that it's scary to them because we look crazy, as Paul says, I shared with you last week. We look insane, but literally we're in our right minds because we're doing what He wants us to do. It may look crazy to them, but they don't understand. Just like if you went to a foreign country, David's in a foreign country this week, I bet he's seeing stuff, he's like, oh my gosh, why are they doing that? You know, but to them it's nothing because they do it on a routine basis. God has called us to be more than what we are. See, I think the church has got stagnant and lazy, and I'm not talking about just this church, don't get me wrong. I think we've got to become more concerned about what we do as a group than what we do as individuals. We have forgotten the mission. Jesus' mission was to go to every town and tell everybody and to heal people. To cast out that which was bad. That was His mission. And that's the mission and the Great Commission that He handed to us. Go and tell. Ezekiel says, look, you tell them, if they won't listen, you wash your hands of it and you go to the next one. Because somewhere through there, somebody's going to listen, somebody's going to get saved. And that person just may be the next person that leads 10 people to me. And that person may be, those 10 may lead 100 to me. And those 100 may lead 1,000 to me. It's not complicated. Jesus had a mission and He set it before us. What we need to do is take up the mission. And we can't do that if we're broken or possessed. We have to get it right here and then take it out there. This is the house. Everybody does laundry, right? Everybody washes dishes. I don't know if my wife raised her hand real big when I said does laundry. Did y'all see that? We have to sweep, we have to mop. We keep our houses in order, don't we? Those are the chores. The work is in the fields. That's where you make your living, isn't it? Now, I've never picked cotton, but my daddy tells me stories about picking cotton. And never fails that every time I go down there, I hear some kind of story about picking cotton. I'm really thinking he really dislikes picking cotton. And we were in Alabama yesterday, and we saw a lot of cotton fields. And they were picking some of that kind of huge bales. I've never seen them do it like that. I don't know how they even pick those up. They must have a machine that does something with it. But it was cool. And I thought about my dad, and I thought about him telling how they picked cotton to their fingers, bled in bags, all day long. They picked it by hand and put it in bags. And those are the chores. That's how they made their living. They sold that cotton. In here, what we do is just, that's just what we do. But the work is out there. And if we're not doing the work, we'll starve to death. There's nothing, no income, I guess you can say. And I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about Jesus said, go to the next town and tell. He said, that's why I'm here. And my question to you is this morning, who's ready to step out into the world and say, I'm crazy for Jesus? And we have a job to do. Because until we get to that point, we're not going to see anybody come to Jesus because we're just huddling up in here. We have a job that He has set before us. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take us gathering together and say, we're going to do this. Because if He loved them that much, I have to love them. And they may be demon-possessed, they may be mean, they may be cruel, they may be ugly, acting ugly, maybe not ugly in person, but acting ugly. All the more reason to say, peace be still. Life is devil, get out of him. Because we have that power in the name of Jesus. Jesus set that in motion right here. I got to go to the next town and preach, guys. We got to go heal people. And the whole town gathered and watched. And I often wondered, how many of these people really truly believed after seeing that? Because I promise you this, if I saw Jesus heal a blind person, I'd believe. If I'd never heard of this guy and He healed him, I'd say, who is this guy and what's he all about? Because I need to know. But see, I have seen Him heal somebody. Me. And that's all I need. And if He's healed you this morning, you're the same way. You've seen it. Town after town after town followed. Why do you think Jesus had such a large following when all this happened? When He was crucified? Why do you think all these people that knew about Jesus? There's probably disciples and people that learned and knew about Jesus, that worshiped Jesus, and churches sprouting up that we don't even know about. Because God didn't. John even said, look, if everything Jesus done was recorded, there's not enough books in the world to hold it on. We have what we need. But I'm sure there's a lot of this we don't see. He changed people's lives. And that's what it's about. Isn't it? Because He changed mine. I know He changed a lot of y'all's too. So who can do this? Who can go out in this world and say, I'm crazy for Jesus? Let's pray. Father, there is so many things that I don't understand about your word, but there's so many that I do. And in that passage, I see your love for us because you cared how we felt. You cared if we were sick or not. And God, you just cared. There's so many people outside these walls that are so caught up in things they can't even pretend to control. God, that you would open a door for them. And God, use us to invite them in that door. God, that your name would be proclaimed more and more and more. That we wouldn't just be a small voice, but it would be your voice. That booming voice of God that changes lives. Now that people would just be healed, made right. And God, in your word, I know right here we see the mission. Now make that our mission. It's so much more than what we are as a group, but what your children are. Your ambassadors, God, your hands and your feet. Father, could we make a decision this morning to say yes? God, we're going to say, here I am, use me. That lives would be changed. We would no longer just be a church. We would be the church. Your church. Your tools. God, that when we reached out, that your arm would just rake them to us. That the evil would be removed and done away with. God, your Spirit would just run rampant. I can't explain how that works, God. I don't need to know, but I know that you can do it. I know that our prayers do not go unheard. God, I plead with you this morning, God, if there's one in here that's just mixed up or lost, that's hurting, broken. God, that right here it would be made right. God, there may be some of us that's sick here this morning. We just need a healing. Lord, I know that there's those out there who are being controlled by our adversary. And it scares me. But I know in the name of Jesus that there is power. And God, I pray right now the ones that we come in contact with that are being controlled by him, that God, that we would just speak your name. And that they would run and hide in fear. And that they'd be released. Now, this sanctuary we have come into to worship you this morning, and God, we want to do just that. Let us praise you now. Thank you, Lord. If you'd like to come this morning, I'm going to give you a few moments. I know we're low in number, but this altar's still open. You always have an opportunity to kneel before God, because he is awesome.